Stopping and giving you a demonstration of how we used to start the cars in those days. Of course, there was no ignition keys or even keyless ignition. It was quite a bit of hard work. So here he comes now. This car would have cost £200 way back in 1904, which really made it motoring was a pastime for the rich. The average annual wage in the UK at that time was only £100. So it really was something for the, it really was a rich man's plaything. Here we go. So just opening the bonnet, it's going to fully retard the ignition, then move it back. And then we're going to just as they tickle the carburetor. You put the ignition key in, just one finger there, and then swing the handle. And there we are, first time, thank you. Okay, the name de Dion Bouton goes way back to 1883. It's a French manufacturer. In that year, Count Albert de Dion links up with a gentleman called Georges Bouton. As you can see, this car also has a reverse gear, as well as two forward gears. They started off making steam boilers and made their first car in 1889. This car is a 1904 version. It's a single cylinder, 864cc engine producing 8 horsepower with a top speed of 30 miles per hour. The Dion Bouton didn't just make engines for their own cars. It's estimated by 1902 they had produced some 30,000 of little engines that were used by around 140 different manufacturers worldwide. The Dion Bouton's figures for their single-cylinder cars were put at around about 20,000. That was by 1912 they ceased manufacture of these little cars. But they were very long-lived. As recently as 1999, a veteran car club of Great Britain had 200 of these single-cylinder cars registered with them. It's one of the 4 cars we enter for the annual London to Brighton run. 2 de Dion Boutons and 2 other cars, depending on what we have available at the time. If you haven't yet bought one of our raffle tickets, please do so, because the second prize is actually a seat in one of our cars for next year's London to Brighton run, so you could actually see yourself in this car. Bearing in mind that the Dion Bouton would have cost you £200 brand new in 1904, it just goes to show how much costs have come down in real money, because this car would have cost you £245 just 23 years later. When we first got this car, it had more of a utility body, now has more of a saloon body, as you can see. It had a top speed of 55 miles per hour. Those of you who live fairly locally and have children, you may well have come here on an educational visit, and had been driven around by our education team in this car. We call it Gumdrop, after the famous car in the books written by Beaulieu. As you see, not only see and hear these cars, on some cases you can actually smell them as well. There's only 88,000 of these were built, so they were incredibly popular and incredibly reliable as well. Series 2. This car was actually priced at £150, even cheaper than the Austin there, as you can see. Its contemporary would have been the Ford Model Y, which was on sale for just £100, but with the Morris, for your extra £50, you got a sliding sunroof, electric wipers, and 7-inch hydraulic brakes. There's a 918cc engine, which will propel you up to 50 miles per hour in 30 seconds. It has a top speed of 60 miles per hour. You can probably see it is actually decked out according to wartime regulations, which stated that one headlight had to be masked over completely, and the other one had shades on it so it couldn't be seen from above, so German planes wouldn't be able to see it. The white stripes on the bumpers and the wheel arches and the running board are so it can actually be seen in the dark. Because it wasn't just a case in the war of actually turning your ignition off, locking your car and walking away. You also had to immobilise it as well in case of invasion. And the favourite way to do that was to remove the rotor arm from the ignition so the car was completely undrivable. So 0 to 50 in 30 seconds, top speed of 60 miles per hour. Of course, with the dearth of new cars after the war, a lot of these cars did see service right through into the 1950s. Okay, next up is a vehicle I'm sure is familiar to most of you. It's our Willys Jeep, built in 1943, first designed by Carl Probst, a freelance American automobile engineer. These, around 640,000 of these were built between 1941 and 1945, built by both Ford and by Willys. Has a 2.2 Go Devil engine, top speed of 60 miles per hour. This vehicle actually saw service on D-Day with the French Army as a radio vehicle. One aspect of the vehicle which would actually focus the mind of the driver is that the fuel tank is directly under his seat. General Eisenhower, who was the Supreme Commander of Allied Forces on D-Day, said that 3 vehicles actually helped us to win the war, and that was the Dakota aircraft, the Jeep, and also the landing craft. You will see an extra piece of entertainment for you on our penny farming here. Unless you didn't know that was going to happen. Getting back to the Jeep, those of you who remember the TV series MASH remember the character Radar O'Reilly. He was the company clerk and he had access to store supply slips, and he was actually sending home parts of a Jeep back to his farm in Iowa. The idea being that when the Korean War finished, he had all the parts he needed to make a 60s for drivers who were stranded, and also for those of you of a certain age, such as myself, I'm sure. It's the AA motorcycle combination, a BSA M21, which is designed specifically to be used with sidecars, so it's ideally suited for the AA. The AA started life in 1905 as a motoring organisation for drivers, and if the AA patrolman gave you a salute, it meant everything was all clear. If he didn't give you a salute, the chances are there was a police cruiser ahead. The AA salute on the move was phased out in 1961, and the salute was all phased out altogether in 1968, when the AA went over to minivans. It was 1919 when first aid vehicles, if they used to call them, were sent out carrying tools and extra petrol to help the stranded motorist on his way again. Interestingly enough, this AA combination saw service locally in that it was used on the roads, patrolling the roads around Michelmersh and Romsey, just north of Southampton. So, there we are, just shows how they can be driven. So yeah, as I say, this combination saw service on Michelmersh and Romsey, so it really does have a local connection. 600cc engine, you know, top speed of 60 miles per hour to speed you on your way. That's a welcome sight for many stranded motorists on the roadside in the 50s and 60s. And there we are, characteristic AA salute. Now for an unusual vehicle for you, it's called the Amphi car. As it passes you, you'll see how it gets its name. It's got its propellers going at the back. It's designed to go on water as well as on land. It's the Amphi car 770, which stood for 7 knots on water, 70 miles per hour on the road. It's powered by an 1147cc rear-mounted Triumph-held engine, and for extra safety, all the seals were electrically welded as well. Designed by Hans Trippel in Germany, he designed amphibious vehicles before the war, and even contributed to the German war effort by building them for them. He actually used the acquisition Bugatti factory in Molsheim to do so. Just over 3,000 of these were built, most of which found their way to the United States, which I guess this car is going next month. This is a 1964 model. They were actually built from 1961 to 1968. And in 1962, 2 of them attempted to cross the English Channel, and one ended up towing the other. As you can see, the propellers going round there at the back. When it was in the water, rudimentary steering was provided by the front wheel, so you steered it as if you were on the road as usual. I think it's just a few drops of rain. Hopefully we'll be able to get the parade out of the way before it comes on too heavy. Next up we have a car that has a very, very local connection. It's actually owned by the present Lord Montague, and it's his own personal Morris Traveller. It was owned by his tutor George Carey when he was a pupil at Walhampton School down near Leamington, and he liked the car so much that when it came up for sale, he bought it for £400. Has to be said that his father, the late Lord Edward Montague, was less than impressed by the condition of the car, although that's been fully restored now. It didn't actually fit in with his idea of the pristine cars that he had in the museum, so much so that this was nicknamed the Tatty Traveller. It has been fully restored, and Lord Montague uses it for the occasional trip around the Beaulieu estate. It does live in the private garages down at Palace House. It has a very local registration, HHO, it's a Hampshire registration, and it hasn't come very far since new. It's actually provided by a BMC dealer down in Sway, just down in the New Forest there. What you have to remember about the Morris Traveller is it's one of the few cars that can actually fail the MOT test because of wood rot. Because the wood you can see on the car isn't just there for show, it is part of the structure of the car. So you have to bear that in mind if you ever think of buying one of these or you actually own one yourself. A restored Tatty Traveller from 1967. Now a vehicle I'm sure needs no introduction from me. It's the Trotter's Regal Supervan from Only Fools and Horses. Quite a few of these were built for the filming. For continuity purposes, they all bore the same registration number, whichever vehicle was used. So it's very difficult to tie down which van appeared in which episode. One thing we do know for sure is that this van appeared in the 2002 Christmas Day special, Strangers on the Shore, which attracted 17.5 million viewers. If you remember this one, it's the one where Del and Rodney go over to France, and on the way over they scatter Uncle Albert's ashes from the back of the ferry. And when they get to the commemoration service in France, there's quite a few men in the village who have a very striking resemblance to Uncle Albert. And easily draw your own conclusions from that. Top speed of this vehicle would have been 70 miles per hour. priced at £437. Whether I'd want to be in it at 70 miles per hour is subject to debate, really. Yeah, we're going to give it a go anyway. Unfortunately, we don't have any David Bowie LPs or Trevor Francis tracksuits for you today. Okay, we have two vehicles left for you. First of all, we have the Jaguar XKR from the James Bond film Die Another Day. It's a 4.2 litre V8 supercharged engine. And you see it's decked out of a few little extras. It has a Gatling gun, heat-seeking missiles, a hydraulic ram, thermal imaging, all the sort of things you need for your daily commute around the M25. The paintwork is quite unique in that it contains gold and actually costs £20,000 a litre. If you remember the film, it's the one where Zal drove it and he actually drove it around the Ice Palace, and it's a famous sequence where Bond's Aston Martin actually is invisible. And that is actually following the Jaguar around the arena today. Okay. The rain hasn't been kind to us, so we're going to move on now to our star of the show, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. This is a 2014 recreation. It's part of our celebrations to commemorate 50 years of the film. It had its debut at the Odeon Leicester Square in December 1968. We have our exhibition here running until November. If you haven't seen it, please take time to do so. We have lots of memorabilia from the film. And you have to remember, we're not just here for today and the summer. There's something going on at Beaulieu most of the year round. Coming up, you can see the marquees going up over there for our Auto Jumble over the 7th and 8th of September. And everything culminates with our firework display on the 26th of October, where we pay homage to the Apollo 11 moon landing.